Two, one. Hello, welcome back to another edition of Lone Star Football Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Johnson. I'm my co-host, Cody Wolf. And then we got a guest today, as you see down below, Austin, our Optimistic Texans fan, as his Twitter is known for. Austin, that's your name, but what's your at for Twitter?
Optimistic Texans fan.
Okay, so it's the same thing. That's right.
Yeah.
Austin here, I've known for a little while. Funny dude, very, very sarcastic on the timeline. He is going to be starting a podcast. Hasn't come up with a name yet, but we're getting him on here, trying to get his name a little bit more known, I guess we could say. And once we get that name, I'll give it out to anyone who's interested. Have you decided if you can do that on Spotify or YouTube yet?
I think we're going to do it on Spotify. That's what we're going to. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Great. So, as you see by the title, we're going to be talking about the NFL trade deadline for the Cowboys and the Texans. I will put a timestamp down below for fans of either squad who wants to just listen to their team. First, we're going to start with the Cowboys. Cody, you're the Cowboys fan. Tell us what you think might happen and what you would like to see happen and who you would think gets traded or who you would like to see get traded.
Honestly, I think it's going to be very par for the course with this organization. Outside of the Amari Cooper move they made a couple of years ago, this team really has not been big players in terms of trade, trading guys away or bringing people in. So, and honestly, I mean, you can't save this sinking ship right now. Obviously, the writing's on the wall for the season. We're already down to our third quarterback, a 7th-round rookie. Everybody saw how that played out against Philly last night. Unfortunately, the only guys that I think the Cowboys would be interested in parting with, and trust me, there are a lot of guys who need to get the boot on that team right now. Unfortunately, they're all, rolling with the money bags. They all have huge contracts that they either just signed or very recently signed. So there's a lot of people out there. You look at Jalen Smith. They'd love to move on from him. Guess what? Just signed a fat deal. He's going nowhere. DeMarcus Lawrence, as of right now, is still the recipient of the highest paid contract in Dallas Cowboys history. And he played better last night, and he's still a force against the run. But since he inked that deal, his pass rush, non-existent. So outside of that, I really don't see the teams that are going to be calling, or the players that teams are going to be calling about for Dallas are guys that we're just not going to part with. Michael Gallup, great talent. He's still on that rookie contract. They'd be foolish to move him, especially considering they can walk away from Amari as soon as it's time to re-sign Gallup. You also have, Zach Martin, who is still young enough and still damn near at the top of his game on a pretty decent contract, for the guard market that we've seen elevate in the last calendar year. He's not going anywhere. Dak's not going anywhere. Plus, I mean, who's going to be making that deal right now with so much uncertainty with his ankle? And I think Dallas is less likely to let him go, seeing what they've seen from Dalton and the offense since he went out. So ultimately, I don't see much. I feel like Dallas, we saw that with Everson Griffin. There was another big name hire they brought in, didn't pan out. Fortunately, somebody wanted him. They cut Daryl Worley. They cut Don Terry Poe. Also one-year guys who came in, did nothing. Past that, there's really not a lot of ways to trim the fat off this organization right now outside of the offseason and straight up releasing guys. I don't see a lot of palatable players in terms of trade prospects.
Right, especially right now, which obviously y'all would be sellers. You're not going to buy anybody. It would be stupid to trade away draft picks.
There's only one move out there, and I think this is more Twitter rumor than it is there's any actual substance to it, is Quinnen Williams with the Jets. I've seen his name thrown around a bunch. But of course, as soon as his name was, out there in, the Twitter sphere, the guy started producing, So I've seen some rumors of the Jets maybe looking for a 3rd-round pick for him. I think that's ridiculous for, what was he, the 2nd overall pick?
Third
overall pick 2 years ago. I don't see that happening. Would Dallas give up a 2nd? I don't know. I don't want them to, but that is, if there's a guy that wants to be moved, the Jets want to move him. He does fill a very glaring need that Dallas is still yet to fulfill. But past that, I don't see them doing anything.
And that would be one player where you're buying, of course, technically, but he's got 3 more years on a rookie deal if he, you pick up the 5th-year option.
Exactly. That's a move you make regardless of if you're 2-5 or if you're 5-2.
Yeah.
That's a long-term move that pays off not just for this season, but going forward.
Exactly. But two guys real quick before we move on that, have the possibility to get sold, or maybe you would like to be sold, but Amari Cooper, the contract situation, well, like you said earlier, he has an out after 2 years. A team, wide receiver needy team, can go maybe pay. What do you think in terms of value Amari Cooper could get you at this point?
Man, considering he's got a deal, if there's a team with the cap space, I'm not accepting anything less than a first, especially, and I know that Bill O'Brien's, doings aren't exactly, they don't set the bar in terms of accuracy for value, but I mean, Brandon Cooks has been getting second and first round picks his entire career. So considering what Dallas had to give up and how he's performed, and, before Dak went down, I don't think that there was really any question still with Gallup and even CeeDee Lamb that Amari Cooper was the best wide receiver on that team. So considering that he is under contract and it's not the most god-awful contract, I would accept a first. I just think that team likes what they have at that stable right now, and it's the strength of that team. I don't think they'd move on from him.
Okay, so percentage chance, what do you give it? 10%?
I'll give it a 33% chance. I give it a third.
Okay.
It's Jerry Jones, so you never know. You just never know with them. If some team comes calling, let's say maybe the Browns right now, they've got the cap space. Maybe they're trying to fill some Odell Beckham void, which, wouldn't make sense. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But, past that, if New England was in contention, I could maybe see them if they aren't, crapping down their legs right now. But I don't see him going anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's talk about one guy, not necessarily rumors or anything, but maybe just someone that some fans have talked about. Some fans might just hate this move, but Jalen Smith. What would you think about maybe moving on from him, selling him high at the deadline?
Man, if there's any way I could get a third-round pick for him, he's gone. If there's one team out, it's a shame you guys fired Bill O'Brien because, he's probably the only dude out there in the NFL right now who would make that deal. I tell you what, dude, out of a season's worth of disappointments, for the Dallas Cowboys, halfway through already, Jalen Smith might be at the top of the list. Non-coaching staff, I'm talking about pure players. The guy has been awful. He had one decent game against the Giants. Past that, the dude has just regressed to a point. I'm like, is this dude a freshman in college? Like, he's just making the most – he's got no football IQ. He doesn't. Yeah. He's got nothing. So if somebody were to offer anything for him and the contract that he got, yes, please take him. A third, hell, a fourth. We're going to need the money to re-sign Dak.
Yeah. Okay, and then one last thing. The return you got for the Everson Griffin trade, conditional 6, how do you feel in terms of value y'all made out there?
Cool. I like it, yeah. I mean, if they can't actually get a 6 out of that, Dallas, for all the things they do wrong, one of the things they do right is they actually draft pretty decently. You go back the last 10 years, they've been pretty good at that and not just finding guys at the top of the draft either. So getting a 6th for a guy who came in and wasn't doing anything, I'll definitely take that. They cut their losses and they were able to recoup a little bit. So that's probably the highlight of the season so far.
All right, for sure. Now we're going to move over to the Texans. Awesome. I go to you. Let's start with just what would you like to see happen for the Texans, the 1-6 Texans, to do at the trade deadline? Past couple of years we've been buyers. 2 years ago it was Brandon Thomas. Last year it was Garyon Conley. Mm-hmm. You're not buying anybody now, at least you shouldn't. What would you like to see happen at the trade deadline for this Houston team?
Sell. Anybody that has value, gone. Sell them.
So obviously, I think me and you share this. There's probably 3 untouchables on this team. It's Watson, it's Tunsil, and it's Howard. Everybody else I'm listening to offers too.
Absolutely.
There was a report that came out and said that Watt was also untouchable. There's
just so many conflicting reports. It's one of those where it's a tough situation to trade such a franchise icon. But from a business standpoint, it's hard to ignore the fact that he still has value. He's still a great player. And the Texans lose tremendous value on him after the season ends. So in my mind, in my perspective, if I'm Cal or Jack Easterby, I'm going to sell high and get some good draft capital.
Yeah, and when we say sell high, there's a slight possibility you could maybe turn out a first for the Steelers just lost Hayward, but apparently that's not supposed to be a big deal.
Yeah.
But a second, you could get a second for JJ Watt to a contender. Nobody like the Jets is going to trade for him.
No.
In this season where they're 0-7.
Right.
So the thing is that this front office isn't going to do it because JJ brings in too much money and the city will lose their mind. There's too much emotional attachment to JJ Watt and not the team perspective.
Yeah.
But so I don't think JJ gets moved. Now, there's a couple of guys, especially in the wide receiver group. Out of those 4 wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, and Kenny Stills, who do you want to see moved, and who would you think maybe gets moved tomorrow at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, I think the person I see most going is Kenny Stills. He was a guy who started last year, was a big player for the Texans last year, made a lot of plays, really just hasn't found the chemistry this year that he had with Deshaun last year. He has only had 1 or 2 starts this season, has only 108 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he's just regressed so much in this offense, falling down the depth chart with his coaching staff. It's hard to see him staying on the Texans after tomorrow when he's a free agent. So get your value while you can. A team like the Packers or a wide receiver needy team definitely should buy for a late round pick, 4, 5, or 6. I mean, any of those, I'm done pulling the trigger.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, there has been rumors, teams are calling on Brandon Cooks. I don't think any of the offers have been good. Same with Randall Cobb. Now, the Green Bay Packers have been reportedly very interested in Will Fuller.
Yeah.
If Green Bay comes and offers a second and maybe, let's say, a second and a 5th for Will Fuller, are you taking that deal?
I think I'm only going to trade Will Fuller if you're going to get a second-round pick. Second-round pick is too valuable for a guy who hasn't played a full 16 games in his entire career, is a free agent after this season who has the potential to go for just absolutely nothing. And you have to wonder, does Cal McNair want to pay him as a wide receiver 1? With his durability, with his injury history, do they want to give him wide receiver 1 money?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And also something that needs to be mentioned for Kenny Stills is he's a free agent after this season as well. So those 2 guys, Will Fuller, in my opinion as well, if you offer a second, he's gone. Look, I know you don't want to trade Watson's number 1 2 years or in the same season, off season and season, whatever it might be, right? But Will Fuller can be replaced for cheaper. Look at Robbie Anderson this year. Brandon Cooks, same thing. Both those guys can be replaced. We need picks for the new GM, for the new coaching staff to rebuild this defense. I just don't. I'm not attached to Will Fuller or Brandon Cooks or JJ Watt or anything like that. I don't think you are either. If we get the right deal, I'm moving most of these guys. Now we're getting lowballed, in my personal opinion. Yes. So, do you think we see one receiver move tomorrow?
I think we should see one receiver move tomorrow.
So I hope so. We need picks bad.
Absolutely.
Talk about 2 more guys here. Oh, come on. 2 more guys here real quick on the defensive side, and I'll let Cody touch on anything if he wants. One who been apparently, surprisingly, been reported to get some interest is Whitney Merciless. Yeah, I see Cody's face over there.
Yeah.
What are you moving him for?
Anything. Get that contract out of Houston. Whitney, man, that's such a tough one. He's, a Bill O'Brien guy. He was a guy who Bill O'Brien really loves. Me personally, I just don't see him being a $14, $15 million pass rusher a year. I don't see that. When I watch the games on Sunday, I don't look at Whitney Merciless and say, this guy is worth $15 million.
Right. I completely agree. Look, if you can get a fifth, a fourth, do it. Pull the trigger.
Yep. I think another thing that needs to be talked about with trading Whitney is that opens up snaps for guys like Jacob Martin who really haven't had the opportunity to play. We get to showcase them and see if they're a piece moving forward for the next regiment, or is he a guy that's gone after the season and just known as a Bill O'Brien guy?
Absolutely agree. Last guy, real quick. This one, I don't think many. I think the team wants to keep him, and I'm only moving him if like I'm blown away by an offer. Zach Cunningham. He's played awful this season. He's really missing DJ Reader, like me and Cody said before the season. I don't think he gets moved. I don't think you would think that either. But
No.
as a fan, if you get offered, I don't even know what his value would be right now because he's been so bad. But say you get offered a second, maybe you get offered a late first to a contender.
Maybe.
Move Zach Cunningham.
No, I personally don't. You're probably going to lose Benardrick McKinney. You don't want to have to fill 2 linebacker voids. He had a great year last year. He's had flashes this season. Get him with the new coaching staff. The thing he needs to work on most is not missing tackles. Zach Cunningham likes to tackle high. He likes to go at offensive players. He likes to go at them high, and that's why he misses a lot of tackles. When he goes low and the next coaching staff can teach this, he can be back to being an elite linebacker like he was last season. So no, I don't move him. He just signed an extension. I say you let him play 1 year at least into that deal and see how he does. And if he doesn't, then move on from him.
I agree. I'm only moving. Look, I'm listening to offers. I'm entertaining, but I'm not shopping him. I'm only moving him if I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Cody, anything you want to touch on for the Texans side of the stuff right there?
Man, no, you guys definitely have your heads in the right place. I feel with regards to what Houston needs to do, and that's recoup as much draft capital as possible. Austin, you totally, touched on with J.J. Watt. It's a business decision, man. That's what needs to be made. That's why, we saw the Patriots able to do what they were able to do for so long when they're cutting like Lawyer Malloy. And, it's cold-hearted, but, man, that's what you have to be to succeed. And if guys were calling about JJ, and offering a second-rounder, I don't see why why do you take that deal? Yeah, you're worried about the franchise, losing money, the fiscal side of that. But, okay, let's say, Houston finishes 7-9 next year. What's the money lost, in that scenario with JJ still on the roster versus – maybe you trade a second, maybe a second and a fifth, maybe somebody comes in and, I'm not trying to, say that a JJ Watt deal is going to swing your season next year.
Right.
But, those things, they do, add up, So I agree that trio of players that you mentioned, obviously Watson, Tunsil, and Titus Howard, those guys you don't move. Past that, even Cunningham. Somebody called and offered a second for Cunningham, even though he did just sign his extension. He did have a great year last year, but he is still primarily a run-stuffing linebacker, and those guys are not impossible to find.
Yeah.
So with the fact, the money situation, what it is for you guys now, if your money situation wasn't so bad, even still with the draft capital issues, yeah, keep them, but you've got both those problems. So if somebody called and offered a second, I would probably swing that. But past that's pretty much where, I'm right there with you.
Awesome, man. Austin, thank you for coming on. Had a blast. We'll get when you figure out a name, we'll send it out. Everybody will tune into that.